Yazin, madoda, men. I'm a woman. I'm not allowed to have authority over a man or to teach men or anything like that according to the scriptures. But if you've been given a prophetic gifting, you can prophesy, just as Deborah was a prophet. She was a prophetess. So you can prophesy to men, then sit down once you're done and not teach them. So essentially, lessons learned, garnered by an individual who is in the position of a prophet or a watchman to give dreams and visions is what it is that I am in right now. And I get to do it even with men. I get to do that. So I'm going to basically speak my mind about what God has been showing me. That skincare product that I told you guys about, I will show it to you once it works properly. I'm currently raving about it right now, but we're cautious. And the only reason why I'm cautious with it is because it comes highly underestimated, even by me. It comes highly underestimated even by me, and so because I underestimate it, I don't want to show it to you yet, lest it should fail me somewhere along the way. And when then it fails me somewhere along the way, I then will be embarrassed that I went on right ahead and told people about a product. Frankly, was the equivalent of hydroquinone sold on the black market, even though it's illegal in a country. So I am experimenting like a guinea pig on my own face, and when this thing proves itself to be what it is, I am taking what I imagine to be an informed risk. Okay? When it proves to be what it is, it will therefore then also prove to be the real deal, the legit, and frankly slaying every product on the market out there that is a tyrosinase inhibitor. Slaying it by like far, to a point where it should be getting taken up, it should be getting spoken about across multiple YouTube channels and endorsed by skincare YouTubers as this stuff works, and it's super cheap type establishment thing. I was talking prior to coming to chat here about how it is that product is similar to Christians, and how I am severely right now a woman that has been violently passed up. And the reason I was passed up was because I did what many people in the world imagine to be one of those. I dared give my life to Jesus. I gave my life to Jesus when I was a cool girl. A shy guy is the kind of guy who'll only be mine. Oh Lord of mercy, mercy, mercy. I don't want nobody loving anybody. He's a shy guy, a kind of guy. Like a shy guy, but not really quite a shy guy, but a dude that feared the Lord. I came to Christ. I became celibate. I came to Christ. I became prayerful about what I wanted. I stopped dating based on, ooh, he's so cute. Ooh, he's so lovely. Ooh, he looks like he could make sense for me. Ooh, he's my height. Ooh, he's this, that. Wada and the other. Ooh, he's a project manager. Ooh, this is the job he does. Yeah, proper. I stopped dating because of that. I stopped accommodating a dude because he's charming. But I waited. And I expected to get married really quickly. I expected after coming in Christ to wait no more than 2 years. I remember shortly after breaking up with my ex-boyfriend, I went to a therapist, right? Because I had to deal with that relationship, the way Njefela things ended and how he became such a buffoon. I visited a shrink, having been given recommendation by a colleague of mine. And this colleague of mine is one of the people that helped with my journey in turning over fully to Jesus. But she was a witch. She was involved in darkness. So because I was busy going to church with her, not yet. Nah, I wasn't yet going to church. This lady. However, when I told her that my situation, my ex, we're fighting, blah, we fought and life is rough, blah, she was like, if you want to see somebody, I know of this one Christian therapist, and she uses the Bible if you will allow her to, and I found that she worked really well for me, and she is endorsed by MTN, so there is a discount for staff members on CAMF, the medical aid for my company. I was like, okay, whatever. So I called this shrink lady and I booked an appointment with her, and it worked like a charm. She made me believe, okay, not a charm, let's say a miracle, because charms are demonic. Let's say, what is this? She made me believe that therapy works. And I realized that, no, not really. It doesn't. Christianity works because she was a Christian. I ultimately would go maybe 2 years later, because of struggling with something in my life, to another therapist that was not Christian. And I found her empty and void of true ability to support me. So that's when I came to a conclusion that it's not that therapy works, it's that counseling in Christ does. But those of you who believe in therapy, do you? This woman was a therapist, she was a psychologist, and she used the Bible. She would give me assignments, to say in the Word of God. Tabulate for me next time I see you who you think you are in the eyes of God. And I would come back with all that homework. What she did to comfort me was basically advise me to pray about it and see who it is that I am in the sight of God. And I did that. I took her advice and I gained healing, thinking that therapy, but it wasn't that therapy works, it's that woman led me to pray. And when I prayed, deposits in my heart for healing were landed because it came from heaven. So she gave me a solution that actually made sense. Very well. So after then going to this therapist, I need to be able to piece together my points. 1 minute. Okay, I had to open for the cat. What worked? Yes, this woman gave me that counsel, but I was newly broken up with my ex-boyfriend. You will remember, right? And that's why my colleague/friend recommended that I go and see this lady, because she's really good and she uses the Bible. She uses Christianity as a tool in her therapy, if you would allow her. Very well. So this woman then started giving me her story, right? She was a married woman, and she told me that she waited on the Lord for her husband for 4 years. At the time I was newly single, it was just a couple of months. And when she told me that she waited on the Lord for her husband for 4 years, she was single for 4 years, I was like, what? She also said that her husband was 4 years younger than her. So the number 4 was quite big in her life. Her husband was 4 years younger than her. No, 5 years younger than her. And she waited on the Lord for 4 years to marry him, to meet him, to basically end up married, right? Type thing. And when she told me this, I was like, yo, you're strong. I said to this therapist, yo, you are strong. You waited for 4 years. And at the back of my mind, I remember thinking, there is no way under heaven that I'm gonna wait 4 years. For what reason, I don't know. She was a gorgeous lady, beautiful, everything njefela in a bunch. I could see why a man would fall in love with her. Karabo in all of her pomp was like, no, I'm too pretty. There's no way under heaven that I'ma be overlooked for 4 years yonke. Not me. Not for Cran K, nah, I'm sorry. Like Elechadima, when I walk out there, it is I that has arrived in the room. That was a woman that was I was in the worldish, but I was interrogating the things of Christ. I've told you my testimony briefly. How it is that it took a little bit of a minute for me to finally fully surrender to Jesus. And in the run-up to, I was convicted of sin. And so I was looking into the things of God. So I was unsanctified and still kind of pompous to a certain extent, having a sense of my own self-worth to a point of imagining that these bugaboos all over the show already are tripping up all over around me. Where I go, who in the world among them who is worthy is gonna reject the prospect of hollering at me, of pouncing on me? I'm not gonna wait like this gorgeous, she was beautiful, okay? But somehow this mindset was all up in my grill. I was like, I'm not gonna wait like she was a colored lady now. I was like, I'm not gonna wait like Lady Chica over here. Oh, brave, oh, strong. She's strong. Yeah, to a point of having waited for 4 years, but me, 2 years maximum. And then 1 year is too long. All I was thinking was, good for you, girl. But in my heart, I was like, I'm not gonna wait that long. I'm not gonna wait that long. I said in my heart, in all of my pomp and my arrogance and, a magnification of a sense of self-worth. And basically leaning on my beauty, my credentials, my stats. I felt like I would garner the 20,000. Yeah, the Lord will humble those who exalt themselves and exalt those who humble themselves. Let's just put that out there. He humbled me. Because, Kimo, where the ring at? Like 10 years in. Hey, girl, you still single. So much for the Khadima. Yeah, 1 minute. I was like, so much for the Khadima. I was opening for the cat so as to leave this time around. I was like, so much for the Khadima. Yeah, I was made to wait. But I had told myself that I'm not going to wait that long. I had not told myself, but I believed very thickly, richly, that there's no way that I'm going to wait that long. I'm going to fall in love. And I'm going to go in the sunset and I'm going to have babies. I was looking forward to falling pregnant. MTN used to have 6 months maternity leave. I would look at all of these pregnant, these pregnant, dainty ladies all over the show. Okay, they weren't that dainty. They were wobbly-legged. They were walking around like duckies. I would look at them and be like, oh, aren't you feeling blessed that you work for a company that gives you 6 months fully paid maternity leave? Fully paid. Yeah, one day I'm going to be in your shoes, girl. One day I'm going to take leave for 6 months. Ooh! type thing. What are these things? Yeah. And then here it is that I'm 39. I'm almost 40. Never taken maternity leave. I never even got to get a farewell, never mind maternity leave from MTN. I was fired without cause, and I remained single for a whole decade. No, not a decade. Goodness, whoa. Decade? Girl, why are you being modest? 12 years. 1.2 decades. Because that was the last relationship that I was in that made sense. I only dated 2 other guys in between then, and the one relationship lasted 2 months. The other one lasted 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, so those don't count. The only solid, stable relationship I was in, the last one, was one when I was still lost in the world. So essentially, once I became a Christian, all of a sudden, this woman that had confidence that go fit and then have somebody get down on his knees and propose marriage somehow happened upon an anomaly that she learned the hard way in light of the set apartness of Christian and how the world truly hates disciples, to a point where a woman would come from the world, or even a man that would come from the world, having been sought after. She had a lot to choose from, or he had a lot to choose from. The ladies were basically throwing themselves at him, would now be repelled, like people would be repelled by him. Women would be repelled by him. Women that would throw themselves at him are now looking at him like he ain't jack, like he don't exist, like he's not in the room, like he's stank or something. Evidencing the reality of John 15, that the world hates disciples, to a point where a perfectly viable woman that under the wrath of the law, without redemption, would get married in a minute, like fast. But the same woman, if she converts to Jesus, all of a sudden she's being overlooked by the same type of guys that would have been all up in her grill. I got water poured on my face, like, humility by force, humiliation to a certain extent. That colored lady, the shrink, told me that she waited for 4 years, and I was like, somebody made you wait 4 years, girl. There's something you ain't doing right. Deep down in my mind, I was thinking, something's wrong. There's something you didn't do right, girl. For you to wait that long, but at least congratulations, you're patient. You finally got married. That woman, by the time she got married, she was also in her 30s. At this point, I'm like 26. I told you, I got born again, fully surrendered at 26. So I'm like 26, headed towards salvation. So this woman, having gotten married in her 30s, to a guy 5 years her junior, Nochal, I was like, first of all, your husband is younger than you. I don't want a guy that's younger than me. I'm not leaving my 30s single. Like, it's not happening, girl. Like, in a year or two, I do except I didn't wait. But I was expecting that I was gonna get married at the speed of lightning. Ever since I dated my first boyfriend when I was just 16, I had never been single for any respectable amount of time. I would enter into long-term relationships with guys, but there were very small breaks in between them. And the last guy that I dated, there was something like 3 weeks in between my breakup with my ex and him. I've never been a patient. I've never waited. I always was just in a relationship. Always. I told you I was with some closet homosexual. We broke up, and about 2-3 weeks later, me and my ex were together. The other guy. And that relationship lasted 5 years. I guess I should be grateful that I'm in a relationship where I'm lasted. Otherwise, I don't even know what under heaven would be my body count today if my relationship did not last. But I never stayed single. I just never did it. I never did it because I never needed to. There was always somebody trying to get with me, and among those somebody's trying to get with me, there was always somebody that I am reciprocating feelings for, that I feel back with, I feel the things that they feel back. And so really, what's the point? Why should I stay single when I'm feeling you feeling me, we're feeling together? So yeah, let's do this. Boom. That was Karabo. So for me to be single, at that stage I was already single a couple of months. That was a record already that I'd broken. By the time I saw the shrink, I'd already broken a record. Because Karabo don't stay single for a minute. Like, I just didn't, okay? I just never stayed single. Like, I thought it was a thorn in my flesh to be single. It was, to me, that which invalidated me as a woman, my glory. If I didn't have a boyfriend, I didn't feel like, I was wanted or regarded or beautiful or whatever. I remember there was this one girl, and when worthless rhetoric messes up your mind, when I was in high school. Before I started jollering, before I started dating, so maybe like grade 9, like early grade 10, because I got my first boyfriend at 16, right? When I was therefore 15 and a half, 16, first bit of 16, I was still single. Yeah, okay, there was this one girl in my class. Yes, actually, it was in grade 10. Yeah, it was in grade 10 when I was talking with this girl, because she wasn't in my grade 8 and 9 class because there was a subject change. When you get to grade 10, you have to choose your subjects. And so the class that you were in grade 8 and 9 would change. And this girl was in the new batch of like classmates because she had chosen the same subjects as me. And one time we were in the queue waiting outside some class. I think it was outside English or Afrikaans. And this girl is like, so Karabo, do you have a boyfriend? It was at the beginning of the grade 10 year, and she liked me and she was chatting me up. There were two groups of black girls in that class. One of them, I belonged to the crew of friends, and then the other one was this girl's crew. And she liked me, however, so she sometimes would chat with me, even though her main crew was these other girls. And I'd be like, let's say her name was Refilwe. I'd be like, no, Refilwe, I don't have a boyfriend. And she looked at me like all disappointed, like she looked like the world had just fallen apart. And I cared about what she thought. I cared about her opinion. And so I felt uneasy with what she, like, her reaction was just so sorrowful. It was saddening. It was saddening. Like, why was that even saddening? Anyway, I'm like, no, Refilwe, I don't have a boyfriend. She's like, so Karabo, do you have a boyfriend? Who's your boyfriend? I'm like, I don't have a boyfriend. And she was like, but you're so pretty. Why? What's wrong? Yes, you guys, yes, this girl made it look like she had just found a tumor in my glory, and it was malignant. And if I don't get a boyfriend any minute now, it's gonna metastasize and I'm gonna die. Anyway, yeah, no, Refilwe made me so uneasy with my singlehood, such that later that year I would get my first boyfriend. So stuff like that etched into me, where I believed that it was a validation of my beauty to always have a dude, basically confirming that I was pretty enough to shella type thing. And that remained a whole thorn in my uneasy flesh all the way up until I got born again. I would have boyfriends. I would always have a boyfriend, except for maybe like a break of a month tops. A break of a month tops. There was always somebody hollering, and among the hollering guys, there was always someone I liked back. And so they would become my boyfriend. I would not run with much else other than the fact that I like them back because they're cute, or they're this, or they're that, and wada. And thankfully, these relationships would last some season, like, yeah, they would last. Anyway, whatever. The last one I was in was for 5 years. Yeah. Anyway, so by the time I had seen this particular therapist shrink, I had basically broken a record of singlehood ever since starting to date ever. And that was because I guess that relationship was super long. I was super crushed. I was super broken. The way that things happened was just super disturbing. And I wanted more. I knew I wanted more. I knew I didn't want to just keep on going from guy to guy, right? I knew that I didn't want to sleep with a new guy, right? At that stage, I had I guess it's worth a while to confess, a body count of like 5. And I didn't want number 6. I did not want to sleep with another guy unless he was my husband. I knew that that was a thing. I had already been given some conviction. I told you I got more or less evangelized in a club by some girl from Greece who was a friend of my friend, who told me that sex should only be had after marriage, and she spoke a couple of things that sat on me until I researched myself. I knew that I didn't want, like, when my ex and I were having troubled waters in our relationship, I would ask questions to my friends like, guys, so how long do you think is a feasible amount of time to wait before you have sex with a new guy? Yeah, and the reason I would ask this question was because I did not want to get into another relationship that would not end up in marriage. I didn't want to sleep with another guy that was not going to be the guy. Long story short, I just knew that changing sex partners was problematic. I just knew it inherently. And the conversation about soul ties in a club etched that suspicion into my spirit in a way that caught fire, because I had already suspected that this fornication, there was something off with it. That you can't just keep sleeping with new guys hoping they'll marry you. What if they don't? What if they don't? So because after my ex of 5 years, given that I believed that that relationship was going to end up in marriage, it took a lot more for me to just jump into a new relationship. I couldn't. Plus, at the same time, I was also convicted of the things of God, and I had gotten back together with my ex-boyfriend during a time when I had conviction about God, to a point of telling him I don't want to have sex anymore. So because it was fornication, he's gonna have to wait until we're both married to each other, type thing. He didn't give me grief or whatever, but it was puzzling to him because it was like, but we've been doing it all along, like what's up, whatever. But he didn't give me grief. He wasn't rude, he wasn't rapey about it, really. Frankly, he was quite the gentleman, I will not lie, type thing. But it did catch him off guard. So I already had conviction of sin, meaning that it was not going to be easy for me to just enter into a new relationship. I therefore had a track record. Sorry, I had broken a record. By the time I saw the shrink with singlehood. It was a couple of months. And I was not trying to get into another relationship unless it was with somebody that I really felt like, yeah, we're gonna do this, you know. This time you're not just dating because the guy can dance or he's cute, or this time it's like, I'm getting into marriage now, you know. So I can't just date. So I was single, but I was not trying to do it for a year. Goodness, I'd never done a month. What about a year? I was not trying to do 2 years, but 2 years I was stretching it. I was like, at most. That's what I'm doing, until I met this therapist who told me that she was single for 4 years. Where I remember she asked me actually in the session, how long do you want to wait before you meet the man that's going to be your husband? And I was like, maybe a year. And then when she looked at me still staring into my eyes, I was like, 18 months tops. She was like, I waited for 4 years. And I was like, wow, that's admirable, you know. But at the back of my mind, I was like, that's you, girl. That's you. I was like, that's you, and you alone in a corner. Not me. And here it is at 10 years later, I'm still single. Yeah, a woman that could never stay single is single now for 10 years. And one of the biggest reasons why I am still single is because I went from being sought after a lot of guys, any ecosystem that I would find myself, to now it's like tumbleweeds, it's dry. It's just absolutely dry. And also, what is this? When I was working at MTN, it's not that nobody wanted me, it's that the guys who did were obviously not of God. So I didn't pass them up. You don't pass up an unbeliever, you reject him. I rejected a lot of guys because they didn't love God. And it made me realize one of two things. The world hates disciples, first and foremost. So you are going to struggle with love as a Christian, right? And number two, indeed the road is narrow that leads to life that few people find. And it is so narrow that to truly find a person that you are equally yoked with. Guys, that I remember there was this one man from MTN. Uptagati, guys, I don't even know why some people are drawn to witchcraft. When I was newly saved, when I was newly convicted of my spiritual gifting, when the Lord had basically started to show me spiritual activity in the cosmos that people are engaged in, witchcraft, I was so in denial. I was in so much shock at people and their foul practices, because a lot of them were so beautiful. They were so gorgeous. They were so lovely. You would never ever think that they could ever stoop that low. Like witchcraft. Oh, boloi. For me, it was like, they don't know urban lifestyles. Not like you, where now melang. Go corporate, girl. You with the whole degree. You hanging out with in the best restaurants, you're eating in the best restaurants, you are living in the best neighborhoods of your city. And lawyer. What? Yeah, guys, not for me, witchcraft was this backward thing. I imagined it as this backward thing that is done by these desperate people that don't have much to look at. Like Batwakodi Plazing, Badulabawanandi Ghost, that can only look at Le Role, Lako Rustenbeck, and that's it. But as for these Basa Josima Boneng, I was like, yo. So I was very much in denial about some of the people that got exposed as witches when I first came to faith, not faith in Christ, but understanding of my spiritual gifting. I was in denial. Many of them were in my family, and I flat out denied it until I could do nothing but confess it, admit it. Okay? Some of them were so classy, so gentrified, so urban, so bougie, that I was like, Ntoyaba tobacco di madhat, upizika di deng. Guys, let's move to the next part. Not next part, but next segment of the same part. Okay, yeah. So because of how much I never imagined that certain people would ever allow themselves to touch this stuff, I didn't want to believe what I saw. But there was this guy from MTN, ne? Yo, guys, yes, like it, but what? He was from Ghana. Me and Ghanaian men, I don't know. I don't know. There's something about these guys. They're so tall and they're so beautiful and their skin is so... Anyway, this guy started working for MTN perhaps so I was at MTN from 2009 to 2014. right? 5 years, and they just got rid of me in Jeff, like just like that. Ingati, I was never there. I didn't even get a farewell. But anyway, whatever. This Oki came to work for MTN perhaps in late 2010. Late 2011, like late 2011. I got born again in 2011. I started working at MTN in 2009. So this guy started working for MTN not shortly, maybe like a year and a half after I started working there. And when he was new, the company, he was hard to miss. He was hard to miss by everybody. I remember later on, already by then I was born again, this one white lady, a married lady, a middle-aged white woman, like went on right ahead to tell all the ladies in the room one time, basically loosening her inhibitions, stopping to be a boss lady for 5 seconds. And she was like, this guy walked past, right, the boardroom where we were all at having a meeting, and this woman, like proper, imagine a middle-aged white woman, like married with children, basically saying something along the lines of, break me off a piece of that, like, yeah, type thing. And she went on to talk about how it is that he is just so edible, he is so beautiful, what a beautiful man that is. And every one of us were like, basically we were like just laughing at how it is that this woman was acting so out of character in the presence of this guy. That's how handsome this guy was. He was a heat. He was lanky, tall like a giraffe, and I like to say that he never used to walk, but he would glide, because there was something about his walk. He was a beautiful black man. And when he started working for MTN, goodness, I'm sorry about the speech, like when he started working for MTN, heck, I noticed him. I noticed him. My girls and everybody noticed him. And like there was like talk on some, that guy, Shar, where does he work? What department is he at? Like, he was so beautiful, that guy, that you could see him literally from across the room. Not even the room. Like, MTN was a very glossy building in that you, like, across pathways, across corridors, you could see a department that is like far away. Yeah, that guy would be on the balcony, on the phone, talking, and you would see him from a far away department and you would spot him because he was that tall. And his walk was so distinctive. It was so distinguishable from everybody else's. He was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. And absolutely electrically gorgeous. Alright? And we would talk about him a whole bunch until one time I had a chat with a colleague that knew him, and she was like, he's married, girl. Man, come on, don't give me that speech like issue. Plus, time is running out on me. I gotta go work out. And this girl is like, she's married. When she said when she said he's married, oh, okay, whoa, I guess that makes him off limits, type setup thing. At this point, at the time when he started working, I had a boyfriend. Alright? But I was not happy in my relationship. My ex was not pulling his weight, and my eyes were actively out in the cosmos, guys, looking for another guy. When I got born again, I matured to not do stuff like that. Okay, plus we had broken up, etc. So if that dude had basically came to talk to me, you must oh come on, man, ish, this phone. If that dude had come to talk to me, my ex was on thin water, hot water. Our relationship was in hot water. I was not prepared to cheat on him, but I was certainly prepared to leave him for another guy. No wonder nang tshwereka go robel. No wonder nang tshwereka keep it around. No wonder, because he was not trying to pull up his weight, his pants, but he wanted to keep me around. But my eyes were wandering. I'm not even gonna lie. When I got saved, however, my eyes stopped wandering. During the time of my lost days, one of my colleagues that worked with him told me that he's married. So I let it go instantly, because of course I wanted to get married, not me. I didn't want to be the mistress of some dude. That would never ever happen. So I let him go. But he was this beautiful, just like alpha male. Okay, he was a total alpha male that was severely coveted, longed for by a lot of women in the office. But he was a married man. A year or two progresses, I get born again. I got saved in 2011. So shortly after, he starts working for MTN. After getting saved, I don't care anymore to be staring at guys because they're tall, dark, and handsome. Now I'm waiting on the Lord for a husband. Now I'm serious, especially a year. I get born again in 2011. But then in 2012, I'd matured very much in Christ. I had gotten very thick in the things of God. And so I was no longer fleshy, carnal, on some break me off a piece of that. I was no longer looking at guys on some ooh type thing. I was now with my eyes solidly focused on Jesus. And waiting on him for a husband. Alright? It was when I abandoned worldliness that all of a sudden I then got flooded by worldly men. So a guy that I had a crush on, that basically the whole building had a crush on, the crush was not reciprocated towards me. He was not even trying to look at me. It's like I didn't even exist in his environment. But all of a sudden, I was visible in his sight. And I was like, yes, Usatane will always bring along umuntu, was tempting to you before you got serious with God, to try and derail the living daylights out of you. I could not believe that this guy wanted me. Because for me it was like, yeah, Batung, everybody including middle-aged white women are trying to get with you. They don't care what your status is, they just want to get with you. And then you come at me? Like, it was puzzling. This guy unatoreki so much guababa. Where I'm concerned, guababa is fear to pursue a girl, that he went and grabbed. There was this one Indian girl in marketing that was a Christian, and I got to know about her because one time at some company roadshow event, I was queuing behind her in a line for food, and we had a conversation briefly and came to learn that we both love the Lord. And so this young lady, this Indian lady, knew that I was a Christian and she was a Christian, and the two of us, when we greet each other around, we'd like, sort of kind of acknowledge one another in Christ on some, I see you, you see me. This lady was a married woman, right? And she worked closely with his department. That's why Christianity in South Africa is so flaccid. It's so lukewarm. It is so seeker sensitive. It just doesn't make sense at all. This lady was my girl. To a certain extent, she was my friend, okay? Because we had that thing in common with each other. But the fact that she tried to hook me up with this guy, for me, it leaves a lot desired concerning her Christianity. This dude was friends with, I had a friend that was in his team. And as I would grow in my career and get closer to more senior people in the organization, I then ended up working with some people in his team, in his department type thing, because that came part and parcel with the job that I was doing. And guys, his colleague, one of his best friends, which was one of my closest friends, and our relationship went sour because when you talk about God to a person that doesn't want God, they sometimes just break away from you. But nonetheless, before this woman broke away from me because I tried to evangelize her, she and I were always just chatting, walking around together. And she was very close with this guy because she worked in his exact department. She worked with him very closely. They were always walking around together. They were always going to grab coffee together. She was a married woman. And I knew that he was married. Remember, some time ago I was told by some other colleague that he was married. But like this girl of mine then ended up one day coming on some, oh my goodness, let's say his name was Steven. She was like, oh my goodness, Steven is getting a divorce. He's divorcing his wife, and the reasons why he was divorcing his wife was because she was a stay-at-home wife. And he was getting bored with her because he was always encircled at work by all these glorious, beautiful young women that are ambitious, chasing their careers. And when he married her, she said that she just wants to sit at home and raise the children. Or it was, I believe it was an arrangement that they both entered into when they got married. That you're gonna stay at home and raise the kids. And then he worked and found himself encircled by so many beautiful, ambitious young women that now all of a sudden he was trying to pressurize his wife to go finish her degree and start working in corporate so she can be as glorious as all these other women he's always encircled by. He allowed temptation to rip him away from his wife. So he basically asked for a divorce. For the reason that this woman was not phenomenal, like Judith saying to her husband, Bryce, in Temptation. He did not think that his wife was phenomenal enough. So he divorced her because he wanted to go and marry somebody more on par with him, as he is, grabbing his own career and whatnot. This friend of mine tells me that her friend, this guy, is getting a divorce for these reasons. At this stage, I'm already solidly convicted about the things of God. And so for me, I was like, whoa, how typical. These guys in the world, they just dump women for no reason at all. They get divorced on irreconcilable differences, not on marital unfaithfulness. They don't divorce for the right reasons. This woman was standing with her friend, the guy, but for me it was like, how typical, worldly divorces. So it really turned me off, and all that fanfare that I felt for him initially disappeared. It had just all completely disappeared now that I had the perspective of Jesus. After she tells me that this guy is divorced, right? I was like, okay, whatever. She basically we were gossiping her friend, that guy. It made me change my mind about him and how I viewed him. The guy then suddenly just started like roaming my desk. Like he would come to my desk and offer me gospel rap, gospel hip-hop, and I was like, how does this guy even know that I'm Christian or interested in such things as these? And then I imagined that maybe it is because he is, what do you call this? Maybe it's because he's he's close to my girl, and since my girl gossips him with me, she probably gossips me to him too, and just like she gossips everybody else. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe my friend told him that I'm one of those hectic Christians, and that's why he felt like he should introduce gospel rap to me. But when he introduced gospel rap, when he was trying to give me gospel rap music from in a USB to basically show me that he is like a Christian himself, it was all these artists that are seeker sensitive, lukewarm. It was artists that I had written off as not really truly of God, that also sing gospel, that do gospel hip-hop. I did not like them. I had written them off. I had my own crew of gospel hip-hop artists that I was listening to, and the ones that he recommended to me were the ones that I was not interested in, because I had imagined their music heretical. I imagined the content of their lyrics heretical. And so for me, it was like, you can't even discern between a man or woman that is serving Christ truly, and you can't even discern between sound doctrine and falsehood. What am I going to do with you? On top of that, I'm thinking at the top of my mind, you're divorcing your wife for no other reason than the fact that she's not, she doesn't juice you. That's the only reason you're trying to divorce her. So, but I was like, thanks. Anyway, the colleague that I was sitting next to, a friend of mine that I used to have in the office that ended up betraying the living daylights out of me, but anyway, after he left, she was like, oh, Karabs, maybe that could be your husband. Some Indian girl that I was very tight with, not the same one, Olewa Christian. This one was a Hindu. I'm like, no, he's not for me. And she's like, but why? And I told her. She's like, oh, okay, I understand, type thing. One, I give out to a divorced guy. And when he was at my desk, he was sharing all different kinds of information about his life, telling me about his daughters. So basically just putting it out there to let me know that he has kids and he wants me, but like, I'm going to have to accept him with his children and what have you. I was like, dude, it's not even in my mind. I was thinking, it's not even just the kids that I'm going to have to take in your stride. It's your divorce. It is all that baggage. And then at this point, I'm like, what, 27? Like, please, I'm not trying to settle for a guy that's got kids that are almost the age of teenagers. This dude was in his late 30s, but he did not look his age. He looked very young. A very, very beautiful man. Okay. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. So that's what. So when I say, because his kids were near on being teenagers, it evidences how early he got married. How young it is that he was. So basically, a woman that he probably got out of high school with, that he loved very much at some point, now he's passing her shade because he's encircled by all of these, chacharach women in corporate South Africa. That guy, after I would not humor him too much, he was also always flirting with some chick right in front of my desks. Women were all over this guy, and he was not trying to ward them off. They were like pouncing on him like an orangutan, and he just let them hang and swing on his body. Like, you need to create boundaries type thing. I was like, I can never be with a man like that. I would always be so insecure. I'd always be so insecure because he allowed women to flirt with him and touch him and hair all over. Oh goodness, it was just so boring and so annoying. Anyway, whatever. This guy, because of the fact that I was not humoring him too much, he would invite me to all different kinds of things, like Toastmasters. He used to run Toastmasters, very well spoken as well. And he'd be like, come to Toastmasters if you want to improve your public speaking skills. And I'd be like, okay, and I'd go to Toastmasters. And when I would get there, he would have like this big beaming smile, and he would keep on like calling out my name as an example to use in this room. And I was like, yo, Batung, that's what I noticed. Well, this guy likes it. He has a crush on me. Like, this guy, whoa. And for me, it was like, I would be so flattered if it was 2 years ago. I would be so flattered because he was that guy that everybody was all up in everybody's girl concerning. Somewhere along the way, his girl, the one that is my friend from his department, comes to me and she's like, there's a guy that I work with that doesn't usually look around at too many ladies, but he thinks you're beautiful. And I mean, come on, there could be nobody else, because frankly, that's the only dude in her team that that I would kind of look at that way. The only sort of kind of black guy with those credentials, those stats. So I was like, man, just call out his name. But then I was like, whatever, moving on. Let's just let go. So I discovered that he thinks I'm beautiful, but I thought that was where it ended. All right. And then next thing, I'm in the coffee shop, and this Indian girl that I met at the roadshow, with whom I exchanged notes, starts like, she literally, I'm not at the coffee shop. She calls me at my desk. And she's like, Karabo, what are you doing? Do you perhaps want to go get cappuccino with me? I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So I go to the coffee shop with her, even though I wasn't, trying to go. And on our way there, this girl is like, so you're still single? You're waiting on God for a husband, right? That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think about Steven? And I was like, girl, are you seriously, like, acting like, are you seriously building a business case for your friend? That guy was so tall and so manly. Why in the world doesn't he just call, like, holla at me? Why can't he send us some short, little, tiny, petite young lady in the office to come and talk to me? She was like, what do you think of Steven? No, Steven he's such a nice guy. He's got a blog, look. And she's showing me on her tablet a Christian blog that he writes in. And I was like, good for him. He's got a blog, good. He writes about Jesus. I didn't know he was Christian. That's good to know that he's Christian. Did not even try to highlight to me that her boy Steven, is currently divorcing his wife, if not newly divorced. And Steven is also, flaccid, fluffy in terms of the things of God. Whatever. So this girl is like trying to push Steven's agenda hard knock, real strong, all up in my grill. And then I'm like, okay, as in this girl, she's trying to hook me up with Steven. Steven sent her. Steven must have sent her. Steven saw me walking around with her. Steven knew that she was Christian. And Steven was like, talk to Karabo for me, please. Like, Guababa Engaga. Yo, okay. How can you be so confident around other people in the office and not me? So he was trying to get with me. So Steven had basically earmarked me to be his second wife. What the heck? He made a decision because Steven developed a crush on me, thought I was beautiful from a distance, heard from my friend that is his colleague that I'm a Christian, Googled my name, found my blog, read my blog, decided to fall in love all by himself based on my very hard knock Christianity because I was writing a whole bunch of beautiful poetry in that blog. Then he started to like hover around my environment, offering me music and whatnot. And when I wouldn't listen to him because I was clearly just kind of keeping him at an arm's length, he then sends me a Christian friend that I have to convince me to, give him a chance. So I go in Steven's in Steven's blog, right? This blog that this Indian girl showed me, where he writes. So he was trying to basically say that you and I have a lot in common. You write in a Christian blog, I write in a Christian blog too. The two of us are birds of a feather, peas in a pod. But like, where were you? Why did the Lord not set you apart so much for me, Steven, that you would essentially have stayed single until you started working for MTN and then met me? And then the two of us would be like, wow, this is providentially orchestrated. Why did God not do that? Why did he allow you to go and get married, then divorced, then basically put me in a position to be a stepmom to some teenage kids at just the age of 27? Like, why? Why would God not regard what I want in this whole thing? That was the first thing that I was thinking. And at that stage, I didn't even have conviction about divorce and remarriage yet. So the only reason I didn't want him because of his divorce was because I found the reasons for the divorce shallow, and I also didn't want a guy that was divorced. I didn't want a guy that had kids. I wanted a clean slate. I wanted to do everything afresh with my man, but not for biblical reasons, coupled with the fact that I did not think him a believer because so many things were evidencing that he was not one. All right, anyway, whatever. So Steven, I go to his blog, and guess what's written in his blog? I'm a woman that's never been married, and I'm waiting on God for this big, beautiful, fabulous wedding that's going to bring lots of glory to the kingdom of heaven. And he has written the bitterness of divorce was so riddled. It was so in that blog. It was so thick. Like he was writing about how it is that the institution of marriage is overrated. What Christian writer says that? What Christian writer says that? He wrote things like the institution of marriage is overrated, and the whole big shebang, the white wedding, the dress, that's also overrated. And I was like, dude, I want the dress. I want the venue. I want the photographer. The whole thing, the expensive individual chairs per person. I want the destination where, like, I want it. I want it all, and I've never had it, but you've been through it already. You've already done the whole 9. You have already experienced your I do Ngiyavuma I moment. And that guy wanted me, even though he was writing such things in his blog. He was also low-key misogynistic in the way that he was his tone about what he believes women to be. I was like, yo, this guy has been calloused by something. I can't. Very well. So I make a decision based on what I read in his blog. It was a beautiful blog. I'm not going to take that away from him. It was well done. You could tell that he hired a graphic designer and everything. But what he was saying in it didn't make sense for me. The kind of guy that would dupe or deceive any other woman, but not me, because I was studious. I was voracious in the things of God. Fine. Steven then it appears, I can't say that Steven let it go. My life fell apart. I lost everything. He was still kind of low-key trying to get in when everything of my life fell apart. right? Everything of my life fell apart. I lost my job, all over the show. So he didn't get an opportunity to pursue me. Hard knock. Because I was suddenly just kicked out of the company type thing. But then I got dreams from the Lord showing me so much witchcraft. This guy, first of all, his fear to ask me out was, I didn't understand where it was coming from, because he was just such a beautiful man that he should have been confident. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't come part and parcel with a beautiful man. Nonetheless, he developed a bitterness because I was not falling at his feet. I was not throwing myself at him the way that every other woman was. And the reason why that was the case was because I was saved now. There was a time when I was kind of low-key, just like everybody else, spazzing over him, but I got over it because I got saved. And now more things mattered than just physical appearance, looking like you're gliding instead of walking. And then I got slapped with so much witchcraft from him, where it is that I was now basically in my dream sleeping around with everybody in the office while he was looking at me in disgust, while he was looking at me like I was some whore, something that I definitely was not. So he tried to defile my character. And in one dream, after losing everything, it turns out that the guy liked me so much that he continued still to follow me. And one dream I had it where it is that I was fighting a battle with my company and I lost it, and after losing it, I went into the sunset with him. I went and I married him. And when I was sitting by myself waiting for my case to happen at MTN, because they wasted like whole 5 months with me sitting at home while still being an employee on their payroll, he called. Sorry, what is this? I got a dream. It was like a call, Vele, of him coming to pick me up. On some let's go. Because look at everything that's fallen apart, but I'll take you. I'll take care of you. I'll scoop you up. I'll help you get your life back together again. And in my dream, I was like, no, but I'm in love with somebody else. And indeed, at the time, I was in love with somebody else. The guy that I would later go on to marry some other woman, the guy that I thought was my husband. I was holding on to God for him. And that did not happen because he was, again, in and of himself, a psychopath into witchcraft and what have you. And in my dream, I told him I'm in love with somebody else. And because I told him I'm in love with somebody else, he then let me go. And that would be the last dream that I would get about him. So he regretted the witchcraft of trying to convert me into a whore because I lost everything. And he felt sad for my case, my state. He felt rejected by me. The feeling of rejection made him cast a maker a harlot spell. When, however, instead of that happening, I rather fell apart and lost everything. He felt bad and was like, okay, I'll take you. In the state, I'll take care of you. But he manipulated my case. Like, he definitely cast a spell to make sure that I don't win my case, that I don't succeed to get anywhere with my case, because if I won my case, I would find myself either back at work or back in some other job and still not want him. So he wanted to put me in a lowly position so that I would take him up. That was a man that was professing Christ that did not know the Lord truly. Is running out. He was professing Christ, but he did not know Christ truly. And however, he wanted me. So what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that when you give your life to the Lord, it's not that pursuit stops altogether against you. It's that the pursuit that is gunning for you is of everything that the devil will use to derail the living daylights out of you. That guy wanted me high and low, by fire, by force. Okay, a guy that I had initially wanted, but he was married. I got over that, therefore, got born again, and then he suddenly got developed in him a very strong attraction to me and was made to focus on me because the devil knew that there was a time when I was spazzing over him. But I ultimately got over him, and it was in getting over him that then I got violently abused, and that same by him with witchcraft, and that same type of sorcery has been pursuing me from men that, how shall I describe this? It's been pursuing me from men that have historically been the kinds of guys that I would have easily, but now I don't want them because their stats are whack, and on top of that they're not godly. And even though they're trying to wear godliness, it's clear that they're not, by somebody who is discerning by the Holy Spirit. That guy was exactly that. And I keep seeing pursuit by men that at some point in my life, any minute now, I'm your girl. But now today, just like that guy Wako MTN, they've been married a couple of years to some other women, have got children that are almost teenagers, and they want divorces because they find me phenomenal, and they want to be with a woman that they imagine is phenomenal, having, however, initially made heavy promises to some other women that they're now breaking the promises to. And based on the fact that there was a time I was spazzing over them, or men like them, they're trying to tap into that, even though I'm so matured now. And having been made to wait now 10 years, it's been 12 years single. It has been a shock, but now I've been humbled to realize that get over yourself, Karabo. You ain't all that in a bag of chips, girl. Like, frankly, get over yourself. Look at how it is that you thought that you were never going to leave your 30s unmarried because you were so fly. And you had so much together going for you. And yet you've been passed up by every man you've ever, like, had feelings for, a crush. They've all said, no, I'll go and marry her instead. All the guys I wanted, like, in the run-up to my faith, to coming to Christ. I had a crush. There was this one guy, Wakovitz, that fell through the cracks. Another dude that was working for MTN fell through the cracks. I had gone on one date with him, though. Another dude, the guy that got married to another woman. The two of us were actively flirting with each other. It looked like something was going to happen until I lost everything and he became shallow. So I became like treasure in jars of clay. When I lost my job, long story short, when I lost, therefore, that which gives women in the world clout, I also lost pursuit by men that were actively looking at me, that I was also actively looking at. When I came to Christ, that number of guys dropped because I was now looking at only godly men. And there was one in particular that I thought was mine because he appeared godly. I'd seen him in many godly spaces and we had spoken a lot of Christianese together and been in the same ecosystem as Christians together. And I thought he could be my husband. And the two of us had been flirting literally the whole time I was working at MTN. But then this time around it looked like something was finally going to happen between the two of us. And at the same time that I was being called to God, so too was he. At the same time I was being called to choose life, so too was he. But he chose death and I chose life. And because of the death he chose, the witchcraft, he became therefore at enmity with me. And once I started getting persecuted by the whole world, he imagined me worthless, like my face cream. He imagined me something that you can just dispose of. He thought, everybody's persecuting you. You're losing your job. You're losing your clout. The thing that I was looking at you on some, that could be a viable wife for me. Wakaza. She's the kind of woman, okay, 20,000. I'm taking Karabo. And then Karabo loses her clout. She loses everything that made her valuable in the eyes of men of the world. And that was this guy's test. He was supposed to keep pursuing me, despite the fact that I was losing everything. The ball on me. And allowed himself to marry a woman that he didn't even love. The woman that he married, the Lord showed me he met her the same year that I lost. He met her the same year and married her the same year. When I had been around all along. I was around that all along. So he married a stranger that he was hooked up with Kokeregeng. That also turned out to be a little mutagati that surprised him with fishnet stockings on the wedding night, even though she claimed to be a virgin. From what God showed me, details that frankly, I'm just like, what in the world? He went and married her and passed me up precisely because I was no longer valuable in the sight of the world, even though I was entirely valuable in the sight of God. I was treasure in jars of clay, and a godly man ought to have continued to pursue me, even when everything in my life was falling apart. Scooped me up, took care of me, when the whole world was spitting on me. Like, did everything in his power to try and help me get my life back together. And then the two of us were going to go get married because you don't let that go. Because she is beloved in heaven. Meaning that what strong feelings I have for her, they're going to give me fruit. Like, that is he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. He was supposed to be biblical, but he wasn't. So his Christianity was derailed by the fact that he abandoned me when I needed him the most. Stopped pursuing. Imagine that the thing, and he's just going to stop. And he went and married another woman. I was so broken. I was so freaking devastated. Like, that's another story for another day. I've never cried like that. And I've never been that in denial for that long. It took me a year to find out that he was married. And by the time I found out, I was out of my mind. Like, yes, like a dude. At some point, I was on some annul the marriage. It's not the real deal. I'm your wife. Kabang. Uhambile manje and I'm cured. I'm healed. But it's such men as these that then 10 years wake up, they've got toddler kids or teenage kids or near teen kids, preteen kids, and a wife that they are not interested in anymore. And they want to divorce her. And now they're like, Karabo, remember, we shared chemistry. Karabo, remember, you and I had a little bit of electricity, girl. Let's talk. Still looking good, perhaps. Still that guy. I mean, nostalgia will always slap you with a pan on the head, guys. I heard from a friend today. You will still think that way. Ran into you yesterday. You'll still be on that tip. This time I want it all. You will thoroughly be stumbled by feelings that you still have for someone that you were out of your mind in love with 10 years ago. But in that time, he's gone on right ahead to marry a woman. He's gone on right ahead to have children with her. And now he's trying to divorce her to be with you. That is what's happening in my life right now. ungodly men that passed me up because I was treasure in jars of clay. And now, just like my face cream, I'm working a miracle. I'm working like a miracle, slaying even market things that are on the shelf in the market. Products that are in the market are well respected, and yet this one works best. Essentially, they come to learn that many women have done excellently, but she surpasses them all. They find out the hard way that they should never have left that which it is that God showed them at first. We all were called at the same time by God, and you would be lying if you denied it. All of y'all, before you had children, before you got married, before you did all these things, were convicted about God. You were trying to attend church, you were trying to talk to Jesus, you were reading the Bible, you were doing all that jazz, and then somewhere along the way, you then chose witchcraft to get that job promotion. You looked around and you allowed yourself to be carried by the wind of the world, and then you chose death. In so choosing death, you therefore passed up life. You passed up on the woman that had life 15, 12 years down the line. Now you want that woman because the evidence of godliness that is displayed, since God prepares for us a table in the presence of our enemies, the evidence of God that is displayed in this woman is so stark. She's been preserved, she's been kept beautiful, she's been kept viable, and she has been faithful to God, and so her virtue is shining through. The Bible says, commit your ways to the Lord and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, and the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. So the justice of my cause is shining like the noonday sun. And now guys that passed me up that I would have married in a second, and they want me at the expense of their wives. You made a woman that believed she could never ever exit her 20s, 40 single. You made her get to 39 with no children. You bewitched the living daylights out of her so that no man would marry her, that you might finally be like, Arabo, you weren't that beautiful. Get over yourself, come on. You weren't that lovely, you weren't that wonderful. Because Kimo, now you're sitting at 39 single. You threw me in a pit, made sure I can't get married. And now you want to marry me because you see that God has preserved me despite having put me in a pit. So now we've got these guys that are hovering around Christian women, trying to derail them because now they're over the age of 35. I'm sorry. Ngampani kaba single. I will wait. Same way that I rejected that dude that had wanted to divorce his wife to find a phenomenal woman in the office for unbiblical reasons, yet claiming himself to be a Christian. I now also am rejecting anybody else at all that wants to now take care of me. I keep hearing Binaya Karen White. Early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table. I make sure that your coffee has some sugar and cream. Your eggs are over easy, your toast done lightly. All that's missing is that morning kiss that you used to greet me. That song. I'm not your superwoman, the kind of girl that you can let down and think that everything's okay. Yeah. The Lord is showing me that if at all I were to ever capitulate to any of these men that want to marry me, after having married other women, and now they realize they messed up, but they see my sorrow, my squalor, my situation that is as bad as it is. It'll start out alright, but one day I'm going to struggle with the affection that I was seeking out all along. The very shade that they passed their wives, they're gonna pass me, because they've never changed. They've never adjusted. They've never been made different. So just as their wives today are singing, early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table. I make sure that your coffee has... Yeah, the same thing that they are doing to those women, they're gonna do it to me. They're gonna be repeat offenders, and I will have made a mistake by allowing myself to marry a divorcee with 2 kids, thinking that he's going to be better to me than he was to his wife. The wife that he left for me because she got boring. When she didn't get boring, he just got sinful. She didn't get boring. When you met her, you were all young and you were bouncing up and down in these streets, and now all of a sudden you don't want her. You see somebody else out there and you want to marry her instead. Like proper. Long suffering and longevity in a marriage is expected by God. And if people don't strive to walk in that long suffering and that longevity, they are sinning against God. So I'm not going to marry somebody else's ex-husband. It's never going to happen. However, just the fact that that is something that is pouncing on me evidences that the world hates disciples, and the devil will always try to make a Christian settle. If he can't make a Christian settle 10 years ago, he will make a Christian settle 10 years later. Just because that Christian is looking at her biological clock, or she is looking at her age, she is looking at the fact that, girl, you're no longer 26. Goodness, get over yourself. So now 40. Just take it. I'm sorry, no. All I could think about last night was, but I prayed. And not only did I pray, but I also waited. Why should I wait and get such a low quality husband? Why should I wait and deal with some other woman's baby mama drama? Why under heaven should I wait and take a divorcee Why did I wait 12 years just to marry somebody's baby daddy and somebody's ex-husband? I was supposed to now wait for a guy to snap out of his insanity, his temporary illness. He and I are both given by the same God blessings and curses, life and death. Therefore choose life. I choose life, he chooses death. But then 10 years later it's like, okay, I want to choose life now, and then gets to take me for a bride. So what? I was a placeholder until further notice. Or rather, his wife was a placeholder for me. I literally waited in celibacy for 12 years since coming to Christ. So some dude that has been having sex this whole time, making babies this whole time, getting married, mamazalas, meeting mothers-in-laws and cousins of some other woman, visiting the brides and burning the fires at these brides of some other woman's relatives for 12 years. And then after that, divorces and then tries to come and burn the fire in the braai at my family's house with his second wife, while his kids also visit. And now I gotta deal with these kids in my house as well. Being given attitude by a baby mama / ex-wife. But I waited 12 years. I waited. So essentially it says that God did not care to acknowledge that it's just unfair that I should have chosen him and waited 12 years single, only to end up married to a divorcee with kids that was given the same choice as me at the same age, before any of us would get married and before any of us would have children. We all entered into this together, but they chose right. They chose left, sorry, and I chose right. And now that they realize that right was the right path all along, they then want to come and burden me with all of their baggage. I'm sorry, no, I will wait on God. And we will see how this works out, how it pans out. But I'm not going to be no superwoman. Dang, 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 dang. I'm not going to be the kind of girl that a man can let down and think that everything's okay. Boy, I am only human. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be a miserable wife that a man is going to get bored with down the line because he has never been God-fearing. And so therefore it was easy for him to disappoint his wife. You see what I'm saying now? So please make like my face cream and be treasure in jars of clay, because at some point you are going to slay all the other products in the market. Even though you are apparently cheap, you are just treasure in jars of clay as a Christian, and you will be passed up by worldly men that you used to have a crush on that will try to come back to you just before God brings along your man. I waited, and so my husband, if at all he comes before the rapture, would have to be a man of high quality and would also have to be a man with perfect stats, as mine are also perfect. I don't have children, I've never been married. Why in the world should I go on right ahead and somebody else's baggage? I'm signing out in Christ's name, Cran K. Peace.